Before I get started on the video, I'd like to ask you guys to go ahead and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button and hit the notification checkbox. That way you guys don't miss any future uploads from me and you become part of the notification squad. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. What is up, people of YouTube? This is here bringing you guys another video to my channel. And today we are going to be doing a movie review. If you guys don't know, sometimes I do reviews on this channel. Movie reviews far less than other things, but usually it's tech reviews, game reviews, things of that nature. So if you guys do enjoy that type of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, for those of you who are watching this, if we could go ahead and hit 5 likes on this video, that would be absolutely awesome. That would be epic, and I hope we can go ahead and do that. Anyways, before I get into this movie review, I would like to tell you guys that this video will not contain spoilers for the most part. I'm not going to be dishing out any major storyline spoilers. Like, I'm not going to tell you guys who the main bad guy is. Like, I'm not going to tell you exactly what the whole storyline to it is and how it, like, what the twist is at the end or anything like that. But I am going to be talking about how, like, you know, he's an actor and he can shoot webs from his hands and stick to walls and stuff like that. So if you don't want to hear those type of spoilers, I guess you can call those spoilers, you guys might want to click off this video because that stuff I will most definitely be talking about. Now let's go ahead and get right into the review. Now, I went and saw this movie last night, and to say the least, I was genuinely impressed overall with how the movie was. So now if that was all you wanted to hear was if I liked it or didn't like it, there you go. I did like the movie, but now I'm going to break down why I liked it and things that if they didn't do right, that they did do right, how I wouldn't have liked it. I'm also going to talk about some things that I think they could have done a little bit better. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the acting as a whole. I think that the acting was very, very good. It was a little bit cheesy in some ways and in some parts. I thought that it was kind of strange and different, but I kind of feel like that's what they were trying to do. And if that was what they were trying to do, then they did a good job of it. And I don't think it hurt the movie by any means, because in my head, Spider-Man should kind of be a cheesy little character that eventually turns into something bigger. And I think that they're really trying to nail that home. And I think they did a pretty good job if that is what they were trying to do. So I'm not really too upset by that, but they did have some cheesy parts in there. I was expecting the movie to be a lot more serious than what it really was. Typically, since Marvel movies have become a thing, they are usually pretty serious. Like, there's not a whole lot of joking around. There's, you know, little stuff every now and then, but sometimes are pretty dark and important things going on, you know, with the exception of like Robert Downey Jr. and some Thor stuff. Like, it's pretty it's not real lighthearted all the time. It's pretty intimidating in a lot of ways, and this movie didn't really have a lot of that. This movie really did have more of the lighthearted family feeling, laughable in a lot of ways, a lot of comedic value to it, and that is because he is a young kid, which once again brings me back to the acting, which was very good. He is a young kid, a young Spider-Man who is going into this crazy Avengers-like world that he has been seeing since he was younger, of supervillains and bad guys and this and that, and this ability. All he wants to do is be a part of this, and he kind of has to prove himself. He feels like he has to prove himself, and by doing that, obviously because he's a young kid, he's 15 years old, he makes mistakes, he messes up, he doesn't do things right, and that's where Robert Downey Jr., his mentor perhaps, kind of comes in and like lays the hammer down, or doesn't in some ways, and that is kind of how the story builds itself to the very end, where he does kind of show himself as a true hero, and is working towards that goal little by little by doing different things. So with that being said, I think that in that aspect they did a really, really good job. Now, me going into the movie, I was expecting a little bit of that, but I thought that ultimately, at the very end, he was going to be this badass superhero who was destroying everyone, and, you know, maybe had a moment of, oh my gosh, is he going to make it? And then once again kicks back up and just continues on. But you didn't get that with this movie. The entire time it was him screwing up and making mistakes and kind of fixing it and kind of doing good, and then making 3 more mistakes after that, doing things that he knew he shouldn't be doing because he was trying to prove himself. And you never really see a Spider-Man that you have seen in the past 5 movies that is just constantly kicking ass and taking names and knows exactly what they're doing. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I went into it, and by the time I left, before I really thought about it, it was a little underwhelming. I was kind of like, wow, there wasn't a whole lot of
badassery, if that's a word, in this movie. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff really going on. Like, there was, but there wasn't a whole lot of, like, giant fight scenes, perhaps, that you would see in other Spider-Man movies. It was pretty much one big fight scene, and then there was a couple small ones throughout the movie. You know, it was a lot of story building, talking, seeing him as Peter Parker and his character building that shaped Spider-Man. And those things were important. I think that's what differs from this movie in comparison to all of the other Spider-Man movies. In the other Spider-Man movies, you got to see a young Spider-Man, yes, young Spider-Man, transform into the actual badass Spider-Man within like a month. Within a month, they're taking on the biggest, baddest hero or enemy, in the entire movie, or in their universe that they can think of at the time. And that's pretty much the whole consensus of the movie, and then it's on to the next one. With this movie, this is a young Spider-Man who doesn't know what he's doing, fighting a low-tier super villain that isn't that good at what he does either. And they kind of put that out there several times. And in my personal opinion, he was such a low-tier supervillain, I had no idea who he was. And I have grown up watching Spider-Man cartoons and Spider-Man movies and stuff like that, and I don't remember this supervillain pretty much whatsoever. So that is something that I think is a good thing and also kind of a disappointing thing, but it's also exciting. It's so hard to explain my feelings about it, because it's like they took a low-tier supervillain, added him into this movie for a young, naive Spider-Man to fight, just to see him struggle to conquer this low-tier supervillain, if that makes sense. That's pretty much what we saw throughout the movie, and it's a really small win for Spider-Man, but there's a much bigger picture with future movies and stuff like that coming out. So in terms of storyline and acting and stuff like that, that's all good. And like I said, there were some things that I feel like they maybe could have done a little bit better, and some of that is to do with the low-scale Spider-Man and supervillain fighting each other. Like, I just feel like there could have been a little bit more leeway there when it comes to him being a badass, and it just kind of wasn't there. But that's all right. The other thing that I want to talk about is I feel like I might get hate for this. It felt too diverse. It felt really forced. In this day and age, like, I want people to feel included, right? Like, that's something that everybody should be able to take part in. But in this day and age, I feel like sometimes it gets pushed a little bit too hard. And in this Spider-Man movie, I think that there's a prime example of it being pushed too hard. And I just felt like there was a lot of characters of different races that in all of the other comics and movies and things like that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't know my information well enough. In all these other movies, comics, etc., they're not like that. And it feels really weird to just change that. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they are black or that they are Indian. What matters is the fact that they weren't, and then they changed it to that just for that purpose. It's almost as if the original characters would have been black or would have been Indian or whatever, then it wouldn't have been a problem to begin with. So, for example, if the original Mary Jane, for instance, would have been black, then when the new Mary Jane came out and they changed it to a white girl, perhaps, or some other race, Asian girl, there would have been a fucking flood of angry, upset black people because the movies are being racist. That's the way that it would have went, and I feel like because they don't want the hate of people looking at the Spider-Man movie and going, wow, everybody in here is white, or there's only one black person, or there's only one Indian person. They don't want people going, wow, you're racist, you didn't put enough black people in here. They're just like, you know what, screw it. We're just going to replace these critical characters throughout the movie that have been with Spider-Man since the beginning of time that I'm aware of, and we're just going to make them completely different people. We're just going to go ahead and do that because that makes sense. I don't want people to yell at me. That's what it feels like happened, and it feels really, really pressured. Overall, it's not a big deal to me. Like, I want people to feel included. It didn't change my opinion of the movie. I just felt that was part of the cheese that was in the movie. It felt really, really, like, it just felt weird. It didn't feel right. It felt like they were really trying to push social agendas and stuff. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for you in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Twitter and Facebook links will be down in the description as always. And deuces.